Multi-UFOs chasing B-29 Superfortress over the Gulf of Mexico. Between 2014 and 2015, seasoned pilots in the U.S. Navy experienced a number of encounters with UFOs during training missions in the U.S. While pilots were mid-flight, their aircraft cameras and radar detected seemingly impossible objects flying at hypersonic speeds at altitudes up to 9,144 meters. These mysterious UFOs did so with no visible means of propulsion, the New York Times reported on May 26. However, none of the pilots suggest that these perplexing UFOs represent an extraterrestrial invasion. According to The Times, which previously wrote about Navy pilots encountering UFOs in 2004, 6 pilots who were stationed on the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt between 2014 and 2015 told The Times about spotting UFOs during flights along the southeastern coast of the U.S. extending from Virginia to Florida. 2 of the pilots who spoke with the newspaper about the inexplicable sightings share their stories. In the new History Channel documentary series Unidentified: Inside America's UFO Investigation, video of 2 aerial encounters appears in the series showing clips of UFOs, 1 tiny white speck and 1 large dark blob. These UFOs later came to be known respectively as Go Fast and Gimbal. Danny Aucoin, one of the Navy pilots who reported UFO sightings beginning in 2014, said, "The objects had no distinct wing, no distinct tail, no distinct exhaust plume. It seemed like they were aware of our presence, because they would actively move around us when a strange reading shows up on radar for the first time. It's possible to interpret it as a false alarm, but then when you start to get multiple sensors reading the exact same thing. This was not the first time this had happened. Something similar happened in 1952 over the Gulf of Mexico, with the Boeing B-29, when chased by 20 unknown UFO objects. The Boeing B-29 was designed in 1940 as an eventual replacement for the B-17 and B-24. The first one built made its maiden flight on September 21, 1942. In December 1943 it was decided not to use the B-29 in the European theater, thereby permitting the airplane to be sent to the Pacific area, where its great range made it particularly suited for the long overwater flight required to attack the Japanese homeland from bases in China. During the last 2 months of 1944, B-29s began operating against Japan from the islands of Saipan, Guam, and Tinian. With the advent of the conflict in Korea, in June 1950, the B-29 was once again thrust into battle. For the next several years, it was effectively used for attacking targets in North Korea. The B-29 on display, named Bockscar, was flown to the U.S. Air Force Museum on September 26, 1961. It is the airplane from which the second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9, 1945. In the early morning hours on December 60, 1952, during a training mission over the Gulf of Mexico, the crew of a B-29 Superfortress cruising at 18,000 feet made radar and visual contact with multiple UFOs. The crew was returning to Florida from a night practice flight and was about 100 miles south of the Louisiana coast, under clear weather and bright moonlight very early in the morning. At around 5:25 a.m. Lieutenant Sid Coleman checked his radar scope to see if he could see the coastline. What he saw was a URE, unknown radar echo, at the edge of the screen. That in the next sweep had gone 13 miles, in that brief pause between the sweeps. Another URE appeared on the screen, and appeared to be heading right for the B-29 at 5,240 miles per hour. The initial contact was made at about 5:25 a.m. On December 6, 1952, 100 miles south of the Louisiana coastline. The initial URE contacts were clocked at speeds of around 5,000 miles per hour. When Lieutenant Coleman alerted his captain of the speed of the URE, the captain did not believe him, stating, "That's impossible, recalibrate your scope." The speed was the same as before. After the initial contacts were recorded, the action picked up immensely, with the next set of contacts coming just as Coleman was rechecking the calculations. When Master Sergeant Bailey spotted another 2 U's, Lieutenant Eckert, the navigator, spotted the 2 more U's as well. At this time the UFOs were on all 3 scopes, which were recalibrated to show no malfunctions. As an unknown UAE was spotted on radar at 3 o'clock, Master Sergeant Bailey Purcell witnessed a white-blue object streak by in a blur under the bomber's right wing. At this time 3 more U's appeared on the radar screens, at an apparent speed of over 5,000 miles per hour, on a bearing dead ahead, 12 o'clock. The 3 UFOs veered to miss the bomber by some miles. There now was a brief pause of activity 6 minutes into the incident that lasted only briefly as another group of U's appeared, on the scopes at the same speed as before. At the 4 o'clock position 2 more UFOs of the same white-blue color streaked by the aircraft. This was seen visually by Staff Sergeant Ferris. 40 miles behind the B-29 5 more U's appeared, which actually were observed on radar to swerve into the path of the aircraft, and were calculated to be there in 3 seconds, 48,000 miles per hour, or around Mach 47. But then the U's slowed down, to match the bomber's speed almost instantly, that is a deceleration from Mach 47, to match the subsonic speed of the B-29, cruise speed around 220 miles per hour, near instantly. The UFOs kept pace with the aircraft for around 10 seconds, then quickly picked up speed and merged to one side. They then proceeded to merge into one object, on the radar scope, and zoom off at around 9,000 miles per hour, Coleman alerted the captain. When the crew landed, they were immediately questioned by intelligence officers with the USAF. Here are some statements. Captain Harter, 1 group of blips was noted. After the set was calibrated, to arc about and swing in behind us at about 30 miles, and maintain speed and distance for approximately 10 seconds. Contact was broken off at 0535, after a group of the blips merged into a 1/2 inch arc, and proceeded across the scope, and off it at a computed speed of over 9,000 miles per hour. Lieutenant Coleman: I noticed one UFO approach our aircraft at a terrific rate of speed. I timed it as best I could with a stopwatch over a known distance, and the flight engineer computed the speed at 5,240 miles per hour. I alerted the entire crew to look for the objects visually, and flashes of light were noted. The closest the objects came was approximately 20 miles. I saw about 20 objects in all. I recalibrated the set and there was no change. The objects were small and possibly round, with the exception of one very large return shaped as follows: 1/2 inch curved arc. I also noticed a large return come up to within 40 miles of our tail from behind, and then disappear. To the best of my knowledge, I believe that this object was real and moved at an extremely high speed, and was not a set malfunction or optical illusion. Master Sergeant Bailey: The radar operator clocked the object, and I computed the airspeed of the object to average 5,240 miles per hour, twice during the period. The radar operator reported an object to be passing at 3 o'clock. Upon looking out the window, I saw a blue-white streak travel front to rear and disappear under the wing. Staff Sergeant Ferris: After the radar operator reported objects approaching at 4 o'clock, I immediately looked in that position, and saw 2 flashes of a blue-white nature for approximately 3 seconds. Blue Book only put forth this theory in the middle of the investigation, because the Geminid meteor showers were taking place at this time. But it was never taken as an acceptable answer for the case, for many reasons that are obvious, such as the intelligent maneuvers, slowing down and speeding up, merging into one object. If one is to speculate that a mirage of either an oil refinery, star or meteor could account for the visual sightings, then one must also account for the radar contacts. This by itself seems impossible by any probable stretch.